welcome to the channel. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Join me on today's video where I will be reviewing a Seiko. Now, I've had this watch in my possession for quite a long time, maybe 3 or 4 months. I did an unboxing back when I purchased the Steinhardt and the Zelos, so I've had more than enough time with this watch to give you my full thoughts and full review on it. And it is one of my most favorite watches. It's also been featured in a few videos on wrist shots. So on the wrist today, I'm wearing the Escapement Time vintage homage, and I've put it on this really nice waxy brown leather strap. But the watch in question is this, the Seiko SRPE39 Save the Ocean Manta Ray Special Edition. Now, amazing, very incredible watch indeed. You know, of course, it's a Seiko turtle, and they've made this special edition out of it. Now, they've also done this dial on the King Samurai. Now, they also have made a dark Manta Ray dial as well. I think this is one of the best dials around, especially on a entry-level dive watch. So I'm just going to give you some technical specifications, some dimensions, price, and before we go ahead and talk a little bit more about the watch. So let's start off with the dims. Now, the case diameter is almost 45 millimeters. You have a case thickness of 14.2 mil and a lug-to-lug of 47.4, so just under 47.5. The lug width is 22 millimeters. Now, while diameter on the watch is quite big, almost 45 mil, it's not that important lug to lug and the thickness. The lug to lug more so, and you can see it's under 48 millimeters, so it is pretty safe for the smaller wrists. Now, the weight to watch is just around 183 grams, and I've taken out 3 or 4 links to size it up for my wrist, so you're probably looking at around the 190 gram mark, so it is quite a hefty watch. Now, specifications, so you have a sapphire crystal with a magnification cyclops. You have a ceramic bezel insert, a full stainless steel case, including the bezel, crown, case back, and of course the bracelet. Now, the movement in the watch is a 4R36 movement, which gives you a day and date function. Now, about the movement, we all should know what the movement is about. You know, it's got a beat rate of 21,600 vibrations per hour, which gives you a sweep of 6 ticks a second, and this is no different to the NH36 or the NH35 movements that we do see on a lot of the homage watches. So specifications, you know, it seems finally Seiko have decided to upgrade. They are no longer giving us Heimdallr crystals and aluminium bezel inserts, you know, but at what cost? So the price of these, the actual retail is around £550, which is a lot of money. It's, you know what, it is entry-level Swiss watch money, definitely. In fact, when I did unbox it next to the Steinhardt, that is what the Steinhardt would cost you, which is a titanium ETA-powered, you know, sub-homage from Germany. So, you know, is it justifiable? I think it is to a certain degree. Obviously, Seiko have decided to move up in the market. You know, they were providing very good value for money watches, but I think there is an aspect of, you know, they were doing quite good for the money. So, you know, they've got a new corporate attitude, and it's like, okay, let's put a price up because we can. And nowadays, a lot of the Seiko dive watches that are coming out, you know, I'd say arguably they're still entry level, but it can be argued they are coming into the mid tiers, possibly for Seiko, around the 700-800 pound mark, which is crazy high, you know, considering they're not that different. But you know, it is what it is. I myself did not pay anywhere near retail. I got this second hand from eBay, and I got a very good price, a price that you cannot argue with. And of course, you know, I think for me, then this is the right watch for that money. £550, I don't think it is. Do some shopping around. I mean, you can get them as low as 480, 460, depending on, you know, where you actually purchase the watch. Okay, now about the watch. So, you know, subscribers of the channel know where I stand with Seiko. You know, I admit that I am a Seiko fanboy. I do love Seiko watches, and I don't think it's something which, you know, I'm ever going to stop being into. And, you know, I had the Seiko Turtle. It is one of the most iconic Seikos going. They've got a very long and rich history. And, you know, it's only natural, right? Natural progression. If when they bought this out, one look at it and you knew you have to get it. I did wait patiently enough, and the right watch came at the right price. That is the best feature about the dial. I'd say for an entry-level watch, this is the best dial you are ever going to get. And, you know, comparing to a lot of the watches as well, there isn't this much detail to the dial. And you got to give it to Seiko. Hats off to them. They are the king of creating this amazing dial. So this is the Manta Ray edition. Obviously you can see why. You've got these faded out manta rays just under the surface, and just looking at that slight close-up detail on the dial, you've got this really nice layer of lacquer applied, which under the right light gives you this shimmer, which looks very similar to the actual ocean on a bird's eye view. So they've captured that extremely well. And you also got a multi-gradiented dial, so it does have a slight fade to it, where it's just a bit brighter in the center and just darker as it moves out. So a amazing looking dial. You've got printed Seiko just under the 12 in white, so it does stand out. And above the 6 you've got that Prospex X automatic divers 200 meters. So just below the 6 o'clock hour marker you've got the movement specification for R36. To the right you do have a date, and you do have this Cyclops magnification window. But that dial, honestly, every time I have wore it, it's the least boring watch I own. And every time you look at it, it's just the same effect. You could look at it as long as you wanted, to be honest. Every time you catch a glimpse under different lights, whether you're outside or inside, it just doesn't cease to amaze me at all. Incredible dial. So much light play, so much going on. Like I said, under different lights you see different shades. Sometimes the manta rays darken slightly. Incredible. So features on the dial, you do have applied hour markers. At the 12 you do have a dual tapered baton, which is quite stylized. And above the 6 you've got a singular tapered hour marker, and the same one at, of course, the 9. Then you've got circular hour markers in between, and they all have this highly polished frame. And the handsets, a nod to the original Turtle from Seiko, similar style hands. And of course you'll see these hands on the SKX as well. The reason is the SKX actually evolved from the Seiko Turtle, believe it or not. So you had the 6309 Turtle, then you had, I think, the 7002 and the SKX 007, and it sort of evolved through there until they brought back the SRPE39 reissue. So they do have that shared lineage, if that's what you want to call it. And I really like the fact that Seiko haven't decided to kill off this line like they did with the SKX 007, and they have in fact continued it, because it is a beautiful watch, very iconic, and one of the most comfortable watches that you will wear. Regardless of what watch collection you have, you do need to have a Seiko Turtle in there. And a personal favorite of mine is also the Seiko Samurai. So what have they done in terms of upgrade? This is the King Seiko, they call it the Manta Ray. So previous to this they did a grenade dial edition, which they call the King Turtle. Now this is a follow-on from that, and of course special edition Manta Ray. So the features that are different from the older Turtles, of course, is the specs, in terms of sapphire, ceramic, and also the bezel design has changed. Now the previous bezel design that you see on the SKX 007 and the previous Turtles, the grip isn't quite there, even though it looks like it should be. That's because the sides are polished as well, so it does slip quite a bit, and it does look a bit, it's not the nicest looking, right? But here with this new bezel design, they have kept that two-step sort of design. However, the bottom step is much smaller. You've got some really different machining. Apologies about the blue on these nails. I was doing some gardening and messing with some fertilizer, so it has kind of discolored the nails. Just noticed them on camera. But yeah, so you can see this two-step design still, and you can see that the facets are actually brushed. So very nice clean cuts as well, not sharp at all, very well finished. And you can see that brushing. This of course adds to a really nice practical feel, really nice grip. So let's go ahead and rotate this bezel. Very nice. Now what I've noticed, I've got loads of Seikos, as you've seen the state of the collection video. The bezels are never the same, they're never consistent, but most of them do start off like this. And I think one of the key determining factors in Seikos and how well your bezel sounds is the actual gasket that is used between the bezel and the watch case. So this is fresh, this is new, so you do get a really nice supple sound. But when it starts to wear down, get a bit loose, that's an indication just to replace a new gasket, and then you'll have a much better sounding bezel. And to make it better, when you put the gasket in, just apply some silicone grease, and that will give you a nice rotation. Now let's look at this iconic crown. Just sits straight into the case, really nice. So you don't need crown guards, but you do have that sort of crown guard effect just slightly, and you can see the case, it has been machined to allow the crown to sit in there really nice. The crown position is around 350 pm. Very nice grip to the crown, really nice threading, really nice crown action. And you got a polished crown with no signage. Now the case, super iconic, as you guys know. And just have a look. So you've got brushing along the A face, circular brushing present, and along the flanks, along the side of the case, it is highly polished. You've also got drill lugs, which is, as you know, very practical, and it is a must on nearly all watches, if you know that can happen. And then turn this over. The case back, pretty standard Seiko case back. You've got the specifications on the back along with the logo, and you've got this wave logo in the center. Circular brushing and special edition engraved along the bottom. Now, as you can see, this does have solid links on the bracelet, very solid, good fit and finish. They fit almost perfectly. You do have male links, but as you can see, look how they curve down at quite an angle, so they should have no impact on, you know, wearability and comfort on the wrist. Now the bracelet is a standard bracelet. You do see this on the older turtles, so they haven't really pushed that far out with the actual watch, considering the case is the same as the previous one, and the bracelet. And the bracelet is fully brushed. It does have a slight taper from 22 down to 20 mil, and you know, this is used, so you'll see a few marks on there, but you do have this really nice high polishing on the insides of the outer links, just to add, I think, maybe, you know, a touch of you know, a touch of quality to it, if that makes sense. And you've got really nice, super smooth linear brushing present on the bracelet. Of course, the Seiko clasp, they have not changed this clasp on any watch, unless you go really high end for Seiko. You know what, and to be honest, I actually don't mind this clasp, even though it is milled, but it's not only milled, it's the way it's been stamped to give it that strength, and it feels a lot better than those crappy milled clasps that we see on, you know, the really cheaper watches. But it does the job. You know, I personally do like the click. I find that quite satisfying. Yes, it is a bit rattly, but you know, I think once you're used to Seikos, and you do have affinity towards them, you know, you're just used to that, and you don't expect anything more. And of course, this bracelet does also come with a dive extension, a very functional dive extension. Of course, it works. Let's get it off. There we go. And in terms of what holds the links together, you do have a pin and collar system. This pin and collar system has changed from the first ones that came out. It does, I think it only has a collar at one end. Absolute ache to take them off and resize them. It just is, I think, you know, it adds a bit more steadiness to the links. You don't get that much flexibility or that much sideways movement, which you don't want. So it does make the links a bit solid, but you know, as everybody knows, the pain is there, the pain is real. Okay, so that is the overview of the watch in hand. We're going to look at the Lume shot, and we'll go into like a little summary. You know, I really do like it. Of course, we're going to touch on the negatives. So let's get the Lume shot out the way, and then before we get on to, you know, the QC issues and the negatives about the watch. Now, of course, Seiko do not disappoint in the Lume department. They use their own proprietary Lume called Lume Bright, and you know, it's not as bright as Swiss C3, is not as green, it's just a touch paler than that. But you know, longevity, brightness, there is no doubt when it comes to Seiko, this Lume will last for a very long time. It'll be very visible, and it is a very high quality application. Right, so Lume's brilliant as expected, and most things are with this watch. Now for the cons or the negatives, you know what, yes, Seiko fanboy or not, I think everyone has seen this problem and everyone says the exact same thing, to the point where, you know, it's just you just don't want to waste your breath anymore. Yes, let's have a look at the chapter ring first and foremost. You can see it is off by just a titch on the left, so it doesn't line up exactly with the 12 o'clock hour marker, just between there. However, at 6 o'clock it is fine. Now, I've seen better and worse examples. Alignment is a massive issue, to the point where there's memes about it. People are joking that this is Seiko's proprietary anti-counterfeit measure, which yeah, makes sense, because a lot of the homage watches are in fact better. Yeah, you have that. You might have some dial misalignment. For me, I think the Cyclops looks a touch off. As you can just see at that angle, it might be to the right a bit. So there must be tolerances that Seiko produces watches to, and it depends on how close those tolerances are. So you might have a tolerance of a point whatever, maximum 2 decimal points. This isn't like precision engineering, only actually when it comes to the movement. So I think ultimately it is what it is. Yes, it is unacceptable, but I'll be honest, I've had this for how long, and I've not looked twice at the chapter ring, in all honesty. Bezels, again, how often do you use the bezel? Some people do use them quite a lot. Some people are very particular. I'm not taking anything away from anyone who is as particular. It's your money, so be as particular as you want. For myself, every time I put the watch on, yes, I will turn the bezel now and then. For me, the bezel rotation on this is fine. So it is a bit of a hit and miss with Seiko, but one thing that quality is always consistent is the case finishing, and the actual functionality of the watch. You've got to remember that, and of course they are also ISO certified, and this is what is missing in the homage side. I have not, to date, with very few exceptions, I can count them literally on 2 fingers, that level of quality and finish isn't there. If you have a look at this case, anybody who owns a Seiko Turtle, or any Seiko dive watch, you can vouch for the fact that it's just super smooth, really well finished. On the straight lines, again, there's no sharpness at all. It's had that extra level of finish, which looking at so many homage watches, that's what I really look for now. Is, yes, you've got all the specs, great, you've got this, you've got that, but how well does it feel in hand? How well is it finished? Now, this bracelet, and this bezel, look, it's got straight cut edges, but you can't feel a thing. It is super smooth, really well finished. The bracelet, although it's a bit old, and not a huge fan of the actual bracelet they use, but could have been worse. The finishing is immaculate on that. I have heard rumors that Seiko are looking to address this, and I think with the prices they're charging, they definitely should, and they should really get back some of the old Seiko passion that they showed and wowed the world with, just to win back a lot of disgruntled guys. But that is what it is. It's a love-hate relationship with Seiko. I think they've made a few watches where I've just gone off on a rant, as I've seen one. I've spoken to a friend of mine where I've just chewed his ear off for the next half an hour, just talking, why have they done this, why have they done that. A few watches did trigger me personally, which I thought bad move, but you could discuss and debate all day. But what it comes down to is, Seiko will make that model, they'll make that watch after a few models where you see it, you just have to have it no matter what. And I think a dial like this, and also in the King Samurai, just amazing. And I think the dial takes away from any negativity that you have around the watch. But it also, as mentioned previously when I spoke about the price, the price has to be right. If I paid $550 for this, I wouldn't be too happy. I don't think it's worth that. I think it should be quite a bit less, but the second-hand price that I got it for, I am more than buzzing, more than happy about the watch in my hand. And I wear this at any given chance, and I think it's just a incredible overall entry-level dive watch, which can hold this weight, can hold its own against a lot of other dive watches, no doubt. So that's it for this review, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.